Today's video is about a perfect example of why a patent having a patent number doesn't mean it was granted, and importantly, even a granted patent doesn't prove that the claim within it is factual or reality-based, only that it was a unique claim. That's literally all the Patent Office does. The Patent Office in the United States and many other countries have been weakened to the point that they can't even filter out things that are physically impossible within three-dimensional space. So we're going to be talking about a patent you might have read about, otherwise you wouldn't be looking at this video. Andrew Waxmanski, Hurricane Tornado Controller Device, patent number, and then it's US20030085296A1. Abandoned. Hurricane and tornado control device to disrupt and slow the rotating winds via sound waves, thereby preventing a hurricane or tornado from forming. Granted patents do not prove that the claim within are real, only that they are unique, and an abandoned claim obviously should not be treated as being more of a validation of a claim. There's a guy who got to apply for a patent, and it has a patent number to it, for walking through walls by deciding to do so. It wasn't granted. 1926, July 10th, a similarly named person was born who later lived in Chipley, Florida, just like our patent application person. 1975, shoe rack stack application granted 12 months after it was applied for in 1976. That's a single granted patent. 2001, filed a patent application under number 09/985.284. The application was published as an official U.S. patent application in 2003. By 2004, the application was declared abandoned, but still had the same number on it, and it says failure to respond within 6 months or whatever of the application. And the thing is, if it's a patent and they're going slow or they don't really worry about it, you might receive your notification that your patent has been declared abandoned. The reason for the application being declared abandoned is that it's considered willfully and or voluntarily withdrawn. This does not make it to where you can't apply for it again. The patent, however, that you applied for hasn't been granted, so you have no defense if somebody else just literally uses your idea. That's why you don't file patents frivolously. Spring-loaded fishing device patent application 2003, abandoned by 2004, January 29th. A similar named person died in 2007, July 9th. You've heard the entire thing. This is not an application that was granted as a patent for something that is real. The U.S. Patent and Trademark Office can have anything you want put in as an application, and it will be given a patent number eventually, not just the application number, which is a string of numbers that's shorter. Because they keep track of things this way, and that's how they do it. And they designate it abandoned or withdrawn or whatever the status is. Why would someone claim that someone has the ability to control weather when this is supposed to use sound waves to manipulate, disrupt, or redirect a tornado or hurricane, and it never had any form of proof of concept to it? Now, before anybody immediately starts yelling about things, the answer to your statements is, you're wrong. Now, this is something that's very important. A few days ago, you might have heard a story of various people who are involved in the weather manipulation industry, as some people are starting to call it. Their job is to report on the weather. They look outside and say it's raining, for instance. But they're getting death threats for reporting on the weather. And more importantly, a particular person received a death threat for simply explaining to people that Category 6 hurricanes don't exist, because that's like saying it's 110% of maximum speed. That doesn't work. Category 6 could arbitrarily be applied to some speed rating, but it does not actually exist because Category 5 is a certain speed or higher. That means every speed. Pointing that out got someone a death threat because it was a statement that was either A, interpreted as telling someone you are wrong, which means of course it's valid to threaten to kill somebody, because they pointed out you're simply wrong about something that's easily double-checked. Or B, somebody famous made a claim of something being a Category 6 because they were being in the middle of a hyperbolic speech, yelling about stuff and making a fool of themselves again. And someone didn't like, but infallible leader has been proven wrong. We must remove this fact. But anyway, here I am to get the whole, death threat thing. The reason I don't tell people my actual real name. The reason I used a fake real name, real sounding name, for years in public. The reason I did it as an LLC in a city, because I was able to. Because people will give you a death threat if you simply prove that they are wrong about something. They treat it as an existential threat to have their egos bruised, and they're willing to hurt you. And I mean death threats in person, where police were involved, and an individual I had to ask the police, unless you feel that it's inappropriate, I need you to give me all of their data so that I can file paperwork. You don't have to fill it out, I'll do it. They felt it was serious enough to violate that person's privacy by getting every bit of data and saying, yeah, this guy's a former felon since he was 13. And I'm like, a person who didn't have their record sealed at 18? And they're like, yes. They were effectively legally unsealed and entered it into evidence for a court case, proving this was a person who has a chronic habit of being a lethal threat. The guy ended up going to prison and is no longer on this planet in any, existential way that you and I would care about. Or whatever, corporeal. It's an incorporeal threat. I didn't do it, someone else did it. So the whole point is, Andrew Waxmanski did not get granted a patent. You'll even see that hurricane tornado control device patent number, and it says granted. No, it wasn't. And they'll say, well, secretly granted. No, it wasn't. He abandoned it. He almost immediately after his one application was abandoned, it was actually right after he had applied and got the application published that he went after his spring-loaded fishing device patent, which was also abandoned. That doesn't show the timing, but it is the actual timing. It's within the same range. This person had, I patented a weather control device. Oh, by the way, here's a fishing lure or something. God, that sounds really familiar with another guy who claimed to have hundreds of patents. No, he has a very small number of patents, and those were abandoned. Only had one of them, which was a magic key you could carry that's shaped like a coin. Spy devices. Whatever turns your crank, buddy. So anyway, anybody wanting to ask any questions about this, I will take only serious inquiries. Next, we're going to get into the next thing. Just because someone you want to believe in says something crazy doesn't change that it's crazy. It should change whether or not you listen to them. Weather manipulation has been around since HAARP, and people bring that up. HAARP didn't do those things and has been turned off, and it was not for that purpose, and no one ever showed a correlation or causation. I went after this seriously and looked up every time that piece of equipment was started up in Alaska. Because some of you don't know. Well, I believe in HAARP. Where was it located? And then you don't know anything. Research. It takes not more than 5 minutes. All of the information I gave you about this patent application that was dropped was picked up by doing a really superficial thing. Looking up the patent number and reading it. The patent. It contains information on the fact, he died in 2007. He was born in 1926 or something like that. You can find all this information. And no, I'm not assuming that information is accurate. The name may actually be a duplicate. But the point is, it matches close enough for us to understand that, no, he wasn't silenced by the government or whatever. This was years after his application had already expired or been thrown out or whatever. So that's about it. You can look up, and right under it, it lists every other person trying to do the same thing. These are people desperate to try to make hurricanes and tornadoes not hurt anybody. They're not people making stuff to make them happen. No. Stopping a truck isn't the same thing as building a truck and driving it. Yes, that's the same thing. It might be much easier to stop, let's say, a tornado. Let's assume that. But that's like saying I can stop a truck by building a wall. That's not the same as I'm going to patent the design to build a truck so I have a moving truck by having an engine. An engine is much more complicated than a fucking brick wall. The patent that the guy applied for was vague and not usable and not applicable application. was the idea of using sound waves to disrupt the airflow in a hurricane by using very powerful audio transmitters. That doesn't mean it could cause a hurricane or a tornado, but if it could stop it, it might be massively simpler than the process to try to cause one. It's not a weather control device if all it does is try to stop the weather from happening. It's a weather abatement device. Next, yes, people are going to bring up they or them. And why are we not supposed to assume you're saying something really underhanded evil and because you're not even supporting it by who you're blaming it on? They can control the weather. How? And then you get 100 explanations. They'll keep piling it on for an hour. Someone will sit there reading their notes. And I at one time went through on a YouTube video and knocked down every single argument. I said, at the end of this, if you bring up one of the other ones, you're not allowed to bring it up again. Okay. And then, of course, as soon as they were all done, well, I'm going to bring up the first one. No, you're not. And then the moderator killed the video feed and said, so you actually sat there without having to look up anything because you memorized this, and debunked 100% of the bullshit he brought up about some claim. It doesn't. I've done this for hundreds of different videos. I'm very well versed in not putting up with bullshit. So thank you for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that. No, Andrew Waxmanski's hurricane tornado control device wasn't to cause them and was never granted. It was abandoned.